And thanks for being here. That wasn't a. I saw the game yesterday in Alingsås, the last 15 minutes. That was horrible, wasn't it, for you? I mean, mostly for you guys.
Yeah, it was really disappointing overall. Because we really were planning to win this game and wanted to win and should win this game too. So it was very disappointing to not get it done.
And how is it like when something like that happened? Obviously, this must have happened before in your career, games like this, where you're super disappointed and actually you must win and you lose. How do you cope with that?
Actually, because it's exactly those games that you're like expected to win. But I think like you have to remind yourself that it's one game and it's like it's the same 3 points for every game. So it's like the value of the game maybe is just the same, even though it's disappointing. And it's nice for me. I like to like just start think about something else, trying to like I called my dad yesterday and talked about family and stuff.
Okay.
To try to get out of that, because it's easy to start to overthink and like get stuck in that same thing. But I think it's important that we don't get stuck into like some negative spiral.
Circle, yeah.
That we stay on top of things, because we have a new game next week already.
And you're the team captain, right? So you must even more than everybody else. You must sort of lift the others and
Yeah, exactly. That's what I like. I have to try to like exactly maybe lead with that and trying to like remind people also around me that we can't get stuck into something that we don't want to be in. So so we have to continue, but we have 2 off now, which is kind of nice. We've had like 3 games in a week in the last week, all away games. I can get a little break, a little reset now, and hopefully coming stronger next.
I spoke to Magdalena Neuner many years ago. She was a Olympic champion in what's it in English? Skiing and shooting. It can happen in that sport. It can happen that if you shoot like 2 or 3 times not into the goals, you lose minutes, and then you are not first or second, you are 47th or 49th. And I asked her how she's coping with that when that happens to her, and she said, well, I always tell myself this doesn't define me. It's not who I am. I'm somebody else as well. I'm a person, and I'm a human being, and so I leave that behind, like you say, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. It's important to not get caught up in a few moments or something, so that you really keep on going. And exactly, try to lift yourself up sometimes. So I've moved around. Actually, I grew up in the West Fjords of Iceland.
Okay.
Was there till I was about 14 or so.
Okay.
And then I moved to the south of Iceland for 4 years, and then moved to Hafnarfjörður in the Reykjavik area. Then after that I went to college in the US, and then I moved to Sweden. So I've been moving around quite a bit, and not been so rooted in one place for basically forever.
Yeah, I was thinking about it. I watched your Instagram yesterday, and you have lots of pictures that are connected to nature, I would say. And then I thought, how is it like to grow up in Iceland as a child and as a teenager then? Because it's obviously must be different from growing up in Spain or growing up even in Germany, where I grew up, because your weather situation defines a little bit your childhood, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I remember my childhood. I lived in the West Fjords, and it was so often that, school was closed because of snow and snowstorm, and that a snowstorm in Iceland is a true snowstorm. So it's like, but I think it's also, it gives you a lot of like, because it's very small, and like you say, you have a lot of nature. It also gives you a bit of like peace, I think, of like, you can like calm down and stuff. for example, grew up there with like by the ocean and stuff, and I love that here in Malmö I can also go by the ocean, because that gives me kind of like a peace feeling. I don't know, like this calmness. But it's like, yeah, I mean, when I lived in the Westfjords, I was also like, I was in football training in my winter boots because the snow was like knee deep and we were just trying to play football. So yeah, the weather is like you said, we often say that we have 3 seasons in Iceland. We have spring, fall, and winter. We skip the summer quite a bit. But the thing is, like, you never know how the weather is gonna be actually, and it's like it can be depressing sometimes, and sometimes you quite enjoy being like here in Sweden, and you just get like consistent summer days, sunny days, summer and stuff. But it also has like I said, it's very like calm in Iceland. It's very safe, and it's a very like tight community. Everyone knows everyone. Everyone knows someone that someone knows, and all that stuff. So it's it can, I mean, it can have, just like everything else, it has its pros and cons in it, I would say.
I remember I was in Iceland many years ago, and it was 15 degrees in August for like 2 or 3 days in a row, and people said it's a warm period now. This is a warm period, and then I went with an umbrella, and everybody laughed because they said no, in Iceland we don't have umbrellas because the wind is destroying them.
Exactly, the wind is the common theme. We are very happy when there's no wind, because I mean it is an island, so we often have a lot of wind, and like you said, like umbrellas are not a thing because they go upside down.
Exactly, that's what happened to my umbrella.
Yeah, exactly. So
how did you start with playing football?
It's actually funny because my best friend at the time, I was doing skiing, and my best friend at the time started to play football, and I didn't feel like waiting for her when she was in training, so I just joined in. And then that was when I was like 7 probably. So that's why. And then I just thought it was so much fun, so I never quit.
So did you start as a defender? Because I was also thinking about, you seem to have been a defender almost all of your career, but the forwards are the heroes. They get all the glory usually, and it's not such a place in the spotlight as a defender. Sometimes it is, of course.
No, yeah, I've always been a defender actually. I think just from early age, that has kind of been my qualities. I've always been quite like strong, decently fast. So that was kind of like what they just put me in the back to, like, and kick it long. That was kind of like, when I was young, I was like, you know, push people away, take the ball, kick it long. So that was kind of like where I've been my whole life. I went in the goal for like a year and a half, 2 years, because I was in a very small team and we didn't really have a goalkeeper, and I was one of those who were not afraid of the ball at that time. So they just threw me in goal, but after like a year, I was like, no, I want to be more active there. And then we ended up being like 2 or 3 that were rotating as a goalkeeper my second year. And then after that, I said, no, I'm over it. It's
also a very different game because the goalkeeper uses more his or her hands, and as an outfield player, you use your feet.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like I wanted to get into more of like these tackles and that, which is still like what I enjoy really much in play. And I felt so like when I was in goal, I just felt like I was waiting to be shot at from distance and couldn't get into the fight in a way. So that was kind of like where I was, where it like drew me out of the goal again, I would say.
Okay. And then you played for, again, my pronunciation, sorry, Breiðablik, which has been at the time was one of the best teams in Iceland. Valur and Breiðablik were very well known outside Iceland, and Thor as well.
Yeah, exactly. I was actually because I started with the full team in Selfoss, which is in south of Iceland, when I lived there, and I was 1 year there, and we actually got promoted from the second highest league to the highest one. But then my family decided to move to Reykjavik, so then I was starting to look into other clubs to go to, so I wouldn't, because I didn't want to be driving every day for an hour to the place where I used to live. Because I mean, in high school age, it's a kind of, you have all school and all that stuff, so it's a lot to take an extra hour to drive to training, an hour to drive back. And then I actually I went training with a few actually in the Reykjavik area, but I just ended up choosing where I felt the best, in a way, where I felt, where I felt like I belonged the most. That ended up being Breiðablik, which was a blessing afterwards, because it went really well, and I got to play from the very start also, which helped me grow a lot and stuff. So yeah, and we had some really good years.
Yes.
When we won some titles, and which is always fun. That's why we do this. So that was really fun, and I think I still have like a very warm feelings towards the club, and watch them play and stuff, even though I don't know so many of the girls who still play there. A few of them I do, but it's still like, it has I have a really good relationship with them. And I actually, over Christmas also, because I'm a type of person, I don't like to be bored. And so over Christmas, when we got like a month vacation, I was in Iceland, and I actually got to do a bit of jump into the office there. And I was just a few hours a day, help them out.
Wow.
And know how they operate and stuff. So I have a good relationship with the club, and like I said, have a warm feeling.
Some kind of home feeling, probably.
Yeah, exactly. Well. That's where I was like kind of starting my, being my adult career. So that was like, and I had like I said, a lot of good memories from it. So yeah, so it has a little place in my heart, I have to say.
But then you decided, or I don't know how that happens. You can explain that. You went to California, as you said in the beginning. How does it happen? And I saw on your Instagram, that was many years ago, and you were a different Guðrún than I'm sure about that, because you were 8-9 years younger at least. Because you wrote at the time, I'm not so good in making decisions, but now I made a big decision. That's what you wrote, actually.
Yeah, that's like my friends. Oh no, I'm not very good at deciding. I can play if someone else decides. Okay, that's kind of my. So I actually had thought about going to. I had some interest from a college, like 2 years earlier when I was about to start university, but I didn't feel like I was ready for it at the time. And but then two of my friends were actually going to a university, and that got me thinking again, kind of, is that something I want to do? And then I started to look into it, and I had quite a bit of interest. So I think I had like 25 schools to begin with.
Wow, my God.
Yeah.
How does it happen? I mean, how do they know about you?
Yeah, I hired like this company that does the kind of like agency.
Okay.
That reaches out and stuff. And I had like interview, like Skype interview with quite a few of them. And then, because you're allowed to go on a few visits, I don't know if it's 3 or 5, going on 3 visits actually. And I first went to Ohio State and Texas University. And after those visits, I mean, it was a lot. I've had a lot of travels. I think I counted on that. I think the period from January to May of that year, I think I had 24 flights abroad
Wow.
or something. It was a lot.
I mean, your flights are shorter from Iceland than they are from Europe, but anyway.
But it was like a lot going on.
Yeah.
So I had this third planned visit also in Santa Clara, and but after going to Ohio and Texas, I was a bit like, okay, I can't go on another trip. I'm just going to decide between these two, and I was going to go to Ohio. So I actually talked to the coach at Santa Clara, and I was like, I appreciate your interest, but I think I'm gonna just go with Ohio. And it's funny because he actually kind of said to me, he was like, I don't think I won't take no for an answer till you've come visit.
Oh.
And I was, young,
Okay, you said, okay, I'm coming.
Okay, like my mom next to me and was like, what did I say? So I ended up going to visit. I mean, it's on the west coast of the US, so it's like far away and everything. But then I actually like really liked it and got just like a good feeling from it. And then I ended up going home and I was like, I don't know what I do here. Ended up making pros and cons lists for everything, for Ohio, for Santa Clara, and to just not go. And then in the end, I decided, okay, if I'm going to go do something that's completely different, I might as well go to California where, it's a lot different. Because maybe Ohio is closer to Iceland, like more weather like Iceland and stuff. So I ended up actually going to Santa Clara, and it ended up being like, I'm hands down like the 2 most fun years of my life. I had like such
You found a second home?
Yeah, it really was. It's like it grew into it because first, like my mom said at the time, like first I talked to my family a lot, but then like as time went on, it came longer and longer, which is a good.
Which is tough for mom and dad, of course, because Guðrún is not calling anymore. I know that from my own daughters.
But they were like, it's good because I am less dependent on them. And
of course.
For me personally, I like grew so much as a person. Like I grew as a football player, and you like get a different view of things. And
the world is completely different in America.
Yeah, it really is. And you also kind of learn to like be more on your own, because I feel like in Iceland you have your friends, you have your family, every kind of close knit in a way. So like when I went to the US, it was kind of like I know no one, and I was very shy at the time.
And it's a Catholic school. I was reading about it. It's a Jesuit Catholic university, so there must be some kind of even if it's not very religious, as I read, it must. But you must feel it anyhow somehow.
Yeah, in a way, but not so much, because we had like always before a game, we stood in a circle, held someone to said a prayer. But it was nothing that. And then if someone asked like, "Oh, do you want to say a prayer?" and I'll be like, "No, I'm not comfortable with it. That's fine." So in a way, like it was, but you can kind of like integrate yourself as much into it as you want. So if you want to have it really religious, you can, but also if you don't, that's fully respected, and you do your thing. So I think like, because from like in Iceland, it's very like religion is not a big thing, and
I know, like in Northern Europe is in general.
Exactly. And I, like, there were people there that were very religious and went a lot to their religion and stuff, but then there's also others who weren't. And I think the important thing was people respected either way what was the thing. So I think like, so that's
the way it should be.
Yeah, exactly.
And you also grow because you learn you are in this different environment where people pray, but you don't have to. But you take that with you as well, as that there are different circumstances in other regions of the world.
Exactly. And you get like, I always say the Americans are a bit crazy, but I love the craziness because it's like they're so not shy and they're so like outgoing, and that's when I went there. I was like, like I said, I was very shy. But I promised myself in the first few weeks that I was there, if anyone invited me to do anything, I was gonna say yes, because I needed to like integrate myself into it. And that was like day one. Some kids, girls from the team and guys from basketball team invited me to come bowling with them, and it was boys against girls, and loser would buy the other one ice cream, and you know, it was so easy to get into things. And then like in a football team, you're always, that's a good thing when you move for football, is you always have your team and you get so close to your team. So I think so it's it's always easy to make friends when you play football, and that was the truth there also. And like the Americans are even more, I would say, outgoing and open, so they're easier to get to know, I would say.
They also have this winner mentality that they always say. An American player once told me that we say silver is for losers. So how much of that did you adapt? Something of that?
Yeah, I think
view.
Like they had a lot of the coach he's still there, Jerry Smith. He has been, it's been like 35 years or something. And he has really like created this. Yeah, like we have these 5 letters that represent what the team stands for, and the school always talked about like the gold standard, which was, and we
gold standard gold
stuff. But it's like, I think in a way it helped me also, because they are a bit like that, the gold standard, a bit cocky in a way, which was a bit what I needed in me. So I think like I grew from that, but at the same time they're very much focused on like the work ethic as well. And I think also like a respect for the people around you and stuff, of like respecting the work that people around you do for your success in a way, which is a lot in football, also team sports and everything, when you have a lot of people around you that you depend on and stuff. So it was, like you learn a lot, and also just from like coming into a different environment with different thinking, different views on things and stuff, where you're like, you learn and you start to see like, okay, certain things I like from what is done here, certain things I would prefer from what I've heard, like had before and stuff. So you can kind of like pick what you, from different things, what you find good and helpful and stuff.
And then all that shapes you, of course. And then you graduated in 2018?
Yes, 20.
Yeah, because I saw a picture of that too. And you actually did something that I didn't do when I was in San Francisco with my daughter. We met somebody somewhere in San Francisco who was selling tickets, and he asked us, "You look like 2 guys who want to bike the bridge." We didn't do it, but you did it. You did it. You went with a bicycle over the Golden Gate.
Yes, I did. With my parents, but it was like in between games, so I had an electric bike to get stuff while my parents were doing the real work.
You actually saw something, because when we visited the Golden Gate, it was all in fog and mist. We didn't see anything.
Yeah, that is, San Francisco has a lot of fog. Like in Iceland, there's fog in San Francisco. So that is, I would say, not unusual to be the case.
Yeah, I read about that. But then you decided to come to Sweden. You have been in Sweden for many years now. You speak Swedish fluently, I guess?
Yes, yeah. I do. Been here since 2019 now. So it's like crazy how fast time.
You learned to do fika, for example.
That really fast. Yeah, don't drink coffee yet, but I still can fika.
Because that's the difference. I talked to Stephanie Labbe once, the former goalkeeper from Canada, and she said when she was in Piteå, Örebro, and she was even at Rosengård, and she said to me then, in Canada, when we work, and we just grab a coffee, go back to work. And in Sweden, it's different.
Yeah, I think it was nice also. Like when I lived in Stockholm and was playing for Djurgården, I also worked 75% as an auditor.
Okay.
Because I was quite bored. And then like I really think that was nice that people were like, okay, 10 o'clock, should we go grab a fika? So just get your coffee and tea, chat a little bit, and then go back to your seat.
Don't you do that in Iceland?
We do that a bit, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I don't think we do as much fika and hardcore as they do it here, but we have I would say maybe the medium way between Sweden and Canada.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think it's also like something Swedes are quite proud of, because this like other languages don't have that word, I would say. So it's also like, as someone comes to the team, for example, it's like, oh, you want to go for a fika? Like fika, you need to like höger, vänster, fika. No, it's like left, right, fika. That is like,
okay.
You know, so I think very like, as soon as you come into Sweden, it's kind of like pushed on you that like, here we do fika.
The first season you played at Djurgården was quite tough, wasn't it? Because I saw at the standings after the season, and I was super close that Djurgården was about to be relegated to Elite Ettan, because you were only 5 goals better than Limhamn Bunkeflo in 10th position at the time. So as you came from winning teams to a team that was losing quite a bit in that year. How was that? Yeah,
it was very different for me also, just to go into like a professional career in a way. I've been in the US in college where
it's college football, of course, yeah.
But then I had a lot of like things around me in a way. And when you go as like a professional, you kind of go and you're quite isolated in a way. And I was a bit like, you don't get guidance. I still had Icelandic girls on the team, which was very, very helpful to me, and they took me really nicely in and helped me, you know, things and stuff. But it was a lot that I didn't know, and lot like that I didn't realize of my own responsibility of, like taking responsibility on things myself. And I think like that first year, quite frankly, I wasn't really good either. I got like benched in the end of the season, which I think was deserved. You know, when I'm looking back, obviously in the moment, you're always not happy about it and stuff. But I think like, but then I found in the end of the season, I kind of got into this, I call it, excuse my language, but I call it fuck it mode. Where I get into this mode that I'm like, fuck it, I'm gonna just play, have fun, and do, which is usually a good one, because that's where you want to be. If you start to overthink things and stuff, that's usually where you kind of get down. So then in the end of that season, I kind of got into that mode, and we stayed up. So I stayed in Djurgården, and I think like the next season, even though we were also on the edge of getting relegated that season, it was better for me personally, because I had like started to take more
own.
Yeah, exactly. Like own responsibility and own. Yeah.
You were only like 23 at the time, weren't you? So it's still super young. I mean, you're still very young, but this is it's a different age to be 29 or to be 23.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, and like like I said, moved away and kind of like out of your comfort, you know. So it was a lot of learning that. But then I found myself a bit more, and like how I want to be as a football player. So it was really good. But like, I think even though it was quite shitty period and stuff, it big learning for me of like, okay, a lot of things are in my own hands of like how to do things, and I have to be mentally set onto the way I want to work things, and like know myself of like, okay, when I'm in this mental state, that's not good for me, or when I'm in this mental state, that's good. We want to try to be there and stuff. So I think like it was a lot of ups and downs and stuff.
Yeah, football's a lot about psychology. I mean, they do a lot of studies with expected goals and stuff like that. And but maybe I'm too old, but very often I think it's so much more about psychology, about things that you cannot really explain that happen sometimes. Like if you're on a winning streak or on a losing streak, or if a forward has problems in scoring goals for months, and then he or she scores the beautiful goal, and then it runs again. You score and score and score. So there are long streaks of that are connected to your mentality, to your brain.
Yeah, a lot of it is. And like I have actually Sege, who we played last year, and she's been a bit involved around the coaching now because she's taking out the coaching course. And I speak with her a lot. She's a good friend of mine, and we talk about it quite a bit, because it's like as soon as it's like this, if you get into the flow, who knows what the flow is? It's just is. Then you're in this state of like things work out. You don't overthink things. You just do things and they work out. And then at the same time, something goes bad, and you start to overthink things, and everything becomes such a bigger thing than it is.
It's really dangerous. And coming back to the game you lost yesterday, to now not let that happen, to get into a streak of bad play. So you have to get out of this as quick as possible.
Exactly. And that's what I said, like that's why it's so important for like remind yourself of like, okay, this was a game we should have won, but at the same time it counts as much as every other game. Have to like switch on to the other one, because like if you start to overthink things and start to doubt yourself and all that thing, you can easily that spiral down into this dry period of like not things working out. So so it's really hard, but at the same time, and the hard thing is like you try to tell yourself, oh, I need to not think about things. But it's also easier.
Yeah, you cannot push it away that easily. You have to fight with that.
Exactly. So you kind of find, and I think that's also happens a bit when you go through all these ups and downs, and as you get older, and you like start to realize what works for you and what doesn't work for you, and like in what ways can I get into this mental state that I enjoy,
need to be in, or that I enjoy. Yeah.
Exactly. So, and obviously, like I said, it's easier said than done, but you find little points maybe along the way that can help you get more into the right direction.
That's about our lives. I mean, we learn lifelong learning, and we find tools to handle different kinds of situations in football and in any other stuff that we have to do.
Exactly.
But how do you explain? I mean, last season, Rosengård won 25 out of 26 league games. And you lost to Hammarby, only one single game. And how is that even possible? I'm still thinking, okay, you had a flow. You had Tanikawa, Momiko Tanikawa, I think her name is from Japan, who sort of set the tone. I think that was my interpretation. You have to correct, because it's a team sport, of course. But she was there, and she was world class from day one, and I think she must have inspired you. And then Seger wanted to have revenge or some kind of retribution, because she had injuries and she had a bad time, a difficult time. And she wanted to leave the stage. That's also one of my thoughts. She wanted to leave the stage as a winner, and she did.
Yeah, it was. I mean, last year was incredible, and like you look back at it with so much warmth and love in your, towards everyone around the team, and like, the constant happiness that was here. And I think, honestly, it started all from also like the 2023 we had a really bad year. And we kind of had in the beginning of the year of 2024, I mean, we had lost 2 players and we've gotten 2 new players. So we had the same squad way, which is incredible to think of.
Yeah, and nobody had you on the list to win the gold. It was Häcken or Hammarby, I think everybody said, exactly. In 24.
And that was like, but I think what we wrote, we talked a lot about, everyone had fill out things that we wanted to like change from last year and what we wanted to identify us and all these things and how do we want to be helped on the pitch, what works for us and all these things. And I think like number one was that like we upped the standards in training in a way, and we got like so like aggressive and so like we talked about throughout the whole season also of being humble, of like nothing comes by itself. Like we need to work our asses off to get anything, because last year was how it was and we worked really hard but we still got so little. And I mean, obviously Momo is Tanikawa, she's incredible players, and like Seger also, I don't think people, without playing with her, I don't think people realize how good she is, because she is so like, playing with her is like, yeah, I love it. She's like one of the best players I played with. And I think like we just found a way last year of like, I have to give, the coaches were really clear on like what we wanted to do, and they were constantly like pushing it one more step of like, okay, we've gotten really good at this, can we add this, add this? And that's like when I remember when we start to like in open play started to send our center backs into the box in open play. And like and it was so enjoyable. I think it also was like we played good football and we were taking like these fun risks that are really rewarding, and it gave you kind of the sense of like you were playing around, you know, and that was so much fun. And I think like we had so many good players and we had so different players, so I think we could use that really to our advantage enough. Like we could create different threats from different areas, which was really, so it's like, okay, are you gonna be 2 people on Momo? Okay, then we'll go and dribble someone. And like it was just like, and then okay, then Mai will come and do 1-2 and run. Like there were so many different things that contributed to it, but I think like we were really big on also just like being humble on it, because I mean we were still like amazed when I remember before the summer break we had 15 out of 15 and we were like, oh my god, this is amazing. So we really were like allowing ourselves to be impressed by our success, but at the same time staying really humble of like, we have to keep doing this because otherwise it can go the other way around. So I think like, and I mean, we had like really good players in every position. And I think what I also enjoy, just the way of like how Joel, our coach, wants to play, like I enjoy it now. But in the beginning of last year, he had this, him and I think we had a 40-minute argument for one clip of like where I was like, I don't understand how we're going to do this. This doesn't make sense and stuff. And we left that 40 minutes disagreeing, actually. But then I think it actually brought us closer to seeing the same thing. I think like, and then now like also this year, even like the style that he wants to play is really much, he really puts a trust in players and of like trusting that you win your 1v1s and like defensively, for example. And I think that is really rewarding when you have that trust and you like it's like, no, your job is to finish that.
Hmm.
Okay, I will, you know. So I think like, yeah, it was just, I mean, last year was a fantastic year overall, and I think everyone from the team looks back at it with so much love and so much appreciation, because like I said, like losing one game in a whole season and winning everything else is like,
it's once in a lifetime, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And yeah, and it's just like that group got so close, and yeah.
But then you came to Stockholm, and I was at the game in Stockholm Stadion last year. It was the last game of the season, and you won the 25th victory, and you celebrated the championship in Sweden. I was down on the pitch, and I talked to some of the players, Rebecca Knack from Germany, and my feeling was that you were celebrating, but you were also, there was also a sadness that I felt in the whole, because I think probably everybody knew that lots of people were leaving or would be leaving.
Yeah, I think in a way, like you said, like after the last game, it was a bit of like sadness that this had ended, like the end of it. And like we knew Sergio was going to quit, was on a loan, players were running out of contract and stuff. So we knew it was never going to be the same. And we knew like this season would never repeat itself. So I think in a way, exactly, it was maybe a bit of sadness over the fact that this is the end of this, like this end of such an amazing, wonderful time that we've really enjoyed with, and start to like love each other so much. So I think that's correct. But as much as we really had love for each other, we also were like, when people were about to leave and saying goodbye in the locker rooms, we were all crying our eyes out. You know? So, but at the same time, it's so fun to like, now so many players are all around the world doing amazing things, and you're like, get to watch them and, you know, be happy for their success. So I think it's really truly something special, and like I will be so forever grateful to have been a part of it, to be honest.
That's maybe it's a sign that what happens to the Swedish league, if you are very successful, I wrote that in my blog also, that if you are very successful, maybe like Hammarby is this season, there's also, like you were last year, or like Linköping was, and I think in 2017, there's a big risk that the big leagues are going to snatch all the players of these successful Swedish teams.
Yeah, it is. And that, I think that's natural, because people want to keep developing, taking the next step and all these things. So it's like, it's natural that leagues that are maybe higher, better than the Swedish league, want the good players in our league. And at the same time, players also want to take that next step. So I think it's a natural way of moving. But at the same time, like it's also sad maybe in a way for the Swedish league that we have to, like, that people succeed here and then have to go somewhere else instead of being able to like continue on in Sweden. And that would but that is hard to compete with, and hard to keep that going when there's like so much development also in other countries and stuff. So I think like, yeah, it's a natural way, but maybe sad for the Swedish league that the best players maybe.
Yeah, because it was different. I'm following women's football now for like 20 years in Sweden, and 20 years ago it was different. Everybody was coming to Sweden. Marta was coming to Sweden. Now things have changed, of course, with the big European clubs like Bayern München, VfL Wolfsburg, Arsenal, Chelsea, Manchester City, United, and even the smaller clubs, I call them smaller clubs in the English league, like West Ham or Leicester or Aston Villa. Even they are more attractive to many players than, unfortunately, Rosengård or Häcken or Hammarby.
Yeah, I think it's also in a way of like the investment to, for example, facilities and the surroundings of that also make that like maybe more appealing to begin with, because you know, most facilities here in Sweden are a way lower standard than for England. And so that's also maybe, and that's obviously like players want to have the best resources, the best facilities to help them succeed. So I think that is like the base of it all.
You have played Barcelona, haven't you?
I have two group stages.
I saw them. I think I was in Malmö at one of the games, and what I realized when I was sitting on the press in the press stand was that they had like 15, 20 guys, young guys, running around doing different kinds of errands and jobs. So they have such a huge number of people working around the team. That's incredible.
Yeah, that's the biggest difference, like the resources around both, like exactly like the coaching, like coaches in Sweden like have to put in so much work of analyzing and doing the little things and fixing these things, while maybe in the bigger clubs they have a person for each job.
Yeah,
they have
analyzers for the defense, analyzers for the goalkeeper, and
exactly. So I think like in a way like, and like, yeah, the resources are just at a whole different level in like those big clubs like Barcelona, or like if we say Chelsea or Bayern, versus what we have maybe like here in Sweden, even if it's like Rosengård is historically like been a top club for many, many years, but it still has, we still have, you know, like maybe 5 people in our coaching team that doing all the work. And so I think the load on them is quite a lot, and that also maybe limits also the ability of like being more individually focused, or something that you can maybe get in a team where you have 15 people around, and like exactly one defensive coach maybe who can just go through defensive stuff with the defenders, like maybe something. So it's like, yeah, so I think like in a way it limits the maybe the development of the whole to have those limited resources, I would say.
Yeah, it's really sad. You're playing the Euros, I guess, in Switzerland?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was very exciting. I'm excited for it.
Because you are, the Icelandic team is also very, very special. There's a special spirit in that team. And it doesn't matter if it's the men's team or the women's team, because you are such a small nation. And like you said, everybody knows each other. So there's also a big solidarity towards your team. The whole country is behind the team.
Yeah. It is that way. And I think it's a bit of like, also we have this crazy faith as Icelandic people. We always say we're the biggest country in the world. That's
yes, you have the most authors, the most libraries, probably, and so on and so on.
Exactly. So in a way, I think that's also what like identifies the Icelandic national teams in any age category or any like gender, of like we have this enormous belief in ourselves, in the country as well. So I think like, and we have this, I don't know, like we have this Viking mentality in us, that we are just like, we like work really hard, we are really tough like players. And I think like that has been what has identifies us through all these years, and has been like a route to our
fighting against nature all your life. Exactly. I'm just thinking about that. Maybe that's also some kind of origin for that kind of spirit.
And I think exactly in a way, you know, I was playing football in knee-high snow with my.
You said that, yeah.
You know, like it's not just like you don't just get to float around. You have to really like suffer through it.
You have a beautiful Insta pic where you are many years ago, where you are sitting on a road somewhere in Iceland, and all you can see is snow and darkness behind you.
That is pretty. That snow in the mountains, biggest part of the year. The wind is always there. Like, yeah, I don't know. I think we find the find the calmness and the beauty in the craziness. And I think that like what like our style of football is in a way as well, of like we are really tough and we are like fighters and stuff. So yeah, I think that's pretty Icelandic.
According to what I read on Johan Rydén's blog, your contract is expiring in the summer. Is that true?
Yes, it's actually ending in the summer.
So are you off to new countries, or you surely don't want to talk about it, probably?
I'm just keeping all my options open and seeing what opportunities there are. I would be interested in seeing if I can take that next step, like we talked about. If something comes up in that way, but yeah, I'm just keeping all my options open and seeing, what opportunities there will be for me.
We have to wrap it. We talked already almost an hour. It was very exciting and very interesting to talk to you. Very nice meeting you. Thanks very much for talking.
Yeah, are you located in Stockholm? Or?
Yes, I'm in Stockholm. That's very good, because if you're not watching men's football, just watching women's football, and you have 4 teams, and you have potentially 52 games each year. Yeah.
I mean, we have 5 trips to Stockholm just this spring, so.
Yeah, same. Yeah, you had this Hammarby. How was that playing against Hammarby?
It was tough, to be fair. I think they're
like a aggressive machine. They came out against you.
Yeah,
in both games.
Their attacking game is really strong. I think they're cynical in the attacks, the way they attack, and the assertiveness and stuff that they have in their attacks. And they have like good players also. So I think they are a really strong team, and I think it's going to be a good year for them, to be honest.
I think so too. But as I said before, players like Wangerheim and Tantberg now, who are very, very successful for Hammarby, I mean, they will be on the list of many other clubs very soon, or they are already on those lists, probably.
Yeah, I don't think there will be many seasons here in Sweden.
Yes, exactly. But I don't want to take more of your time, Guðrún. It was a pleasure talking to you, and hope to see you in person one day.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.